Recently, something happened that honestly shouldn't be possible in modern basketball. And yet, here we are. An NBA player, James Naji, has effectively stepped away from the league and decided to go back to college. This isn't a rumor or a hypothetical. He was drafted, he played summer league, he appeared in preseason games, he scored NBA points. And now, instead of fighting for rotation minutes or a two-way contract, the conversation is suddenly about college money being too good to pass up. Think about how wild that sounds. For decades, the NBA has been the finish line. College was the step before it, not the other way around. But now fans are asking questions that didn't even exist a few years ago. How is this allowed? What loophole makes this possible? And more importantly, what does this mean for the NBA itself? A lot of college basketball fans are upset, saying this kills the spirit of collegiate sports. But let's be real, that argument misses the bigger picture. The real issue isn't college basketball. It's the league, because once an NBA player realizes they can walk away, get paid, develop, and still keep options open, the entire system starts to wobble. People are already joking about the extreme versions of this. NBA veterans suddenly announcing, "Yeah, I'm out, I'm going back to school." The jokes write themselves. But underneath the humor is a real concern. Could this actually happen? Technically, the rules say no. There's a 5-year eligibility window tied to when a player graduates high school. That should shut the door on most scenarios. But James Naji's situation is forcing people to re-examine where that line actually exists and whether it's as solid as everyone assumed. Because this isn't a player who never touched the NBA floor. This isn't a draft and stash situation. This someone who was one pick away from the first round, moved in a major trade, and already tasted the league. And now he's testing a system that was never designed for players to walk backward through it. If he wins this battle, it won't just be a one-off story. It could open a door the NBA never planned to unlock. And maybe that's why this feels different. Lately, it feels like 2016 is coming back. Cartoons, rap songs, the iPhone 6, Facebook in its prime, and yeah, even the fidget spinner. So why would anyone go back to college after reaching the NBA? The answer is simple. His NBA path stalled, and right now, college money is very real money. When the news broke, the reaction was predictable. People called it embarrassing. A grown man, a professional athlete crawling back to college. But that framing misses the truth. This isn't a pro stepping down. This is a professional re-entering the professional system, just under a different label. For the first time in modern basketball history, the NBA draft pipeline is shifting. There could soon be a first round with 0 players coming from Europe, not because international talent disappeared, but because those same players can now stay in the United States, play college basketball, and still get paid, sometimes more than they would overseas. High major college players routinely earn 6 figures. Many make 7, and a growing number arrive on campus already wealthy. Forget the household names for a moment. There are players most fans have never heard of pulling in millions. One example is JT Toppin at Texas Tech, reportedly earning around $4 million annually. And that's college. High school players aren't immune either. Elite prospects are already treated like free agents long before graduation. Take AJ DeBonsa. After his junior year of high school, he essentially hit the open market. Schools across the country were offering around $1 million just to get him to enroll. One prep program went even further, less cash up front, but something unheard of. Equity in the school itself. He accepted. He became both a student and a partial owner. By the time he reached college, he was already a millionaire. So what's the real difference between players like that and someone like James Naji? They all made money before stepping on a college court. They're all professionals in everything but name. The only real separator is the NBA draft. And that's where things get uncomfortable. What happens if more NBA players decide they don't like where they were drafted? What if a player looks at his situation and says, "No thanks, I'd rather go back to school, get paid, and control my future"? Because if that becomes normal, certain franchises could be permanently stuck at the bottom. Why risk development on a bad team when college offers money, exposure, and leverage? That's not theoretical anymore. Another NBA player, Trenton Flowers, is actively testing this idea. He's played real NBA minutes. He's scored in real games. And now, legitimate college programs are lining up, asking the same question. Why wouldn't we take him? It looks shameless. It feels wrong. But in hyper-competitive sports, winning is the only currency that matters. Coaches are judged by wins, not ethics. If there's a loophole, someone will use it. And here's the key point. There are no clear rules stopping it. Every one of these cases ends up in front of a judge. And legally speaking, what's the difference between a player who made money overseas and one who made money in the NBA? If one is allowed back into college, banning the other becomes indefensible. That's why schools won't fight it. They're afraid of losing. Because if they do, it won't just be one player walking back to campus. It could trigger another antitrust case, and that's the kind of loss that can break an entire system. If that legal line ever gets crossed, the consequences would be catastrophic. An unfavorable court ruling wouldn't just affect one player or one school. It would trigger billions of dollars in back pay, automatically tripled under federal antitrust law. One verdict like that could financially cripple or outright bankrupt the entire NCAA. And that's why this isn't really about Trenton Flowers. It never was. The risk is simply too high. From the NCAA's perspective, letting one player suit up is far safer than letting a judge dismantle their entire business model in a courtroom. So why hasn't the NBA stepped in to shut this down? In a normal situation, they probably would. But for a fringe case like Flowers, there's no incentive. The league gains nothing by fighting it, and stepping in could invite legal scrutiny they don't want. But here's where the conversation gets uncomfortable, because once you scale this idea up, it stops being fringe. Here's a hypothetical that sounds insane, until you realize it's not illegal. Imagine a franchise desperately wants a generational prospect. The player has roots in the state. The owner is a billionaire with deep ties to a local university. Instead of rushing the player into the draft, the owner quietly suggests something else. Stay in school. We'll tank. We'll wait for the #1 pick. And in the meantime, you'll be paid privately what you would have earned as an NBA rookie. On paper, the player technically loses money. In reality, he doesn't lose a dollar. He develops, stays comfortable, and eventually lands exactly where both sides wanted all along. The owner wins twice, supporting a school he already funds and securing a franchise cornerstone without ever violating league rules. Is this extreme? Absolutely. Will it happen tomorrow? Probably not. But in a system with no clear boundaries, the most powerful people will always push until someone stops them. And right now, no one is stopping anything. This is the Wild West. Every case is decided individually, in court, with no consistent precedent. Total chaos. Which brings us to the obvious solution. The one college sports refuses to touch: a collective bargaining agreement. If college athletes were allowed to unionize, negotiate compensation, and agree on eligibility rules the way professionals do, this entire mess could be stabilized. Clear guidelines, defined timelines, periodic renegotiation, structure, the same system that governs every major professional league. But college sports has always said this is a non-starter, because the moment players have a CBA, the illusion disappears. College athletes are officially professionals, and to many administrators, that feels like the death of college sports. Here's the truth, though. That moment already passed. The money is here. The power has shifted. The only thing missing is formal acknowledgement. And until that happens, players will keep testing the limits. They'll keep finding loopholes. And every successful challenge encourages the next one to go further. Ironically, the chaos isn't entirely bad. College basketball has more high-level talent than it's had in years. The competition is real again. The games matter. In many ways, it's becoming what it always claimed to be, a feeder system to the NBA, much like college football is to the NFL. But chaos without structure doesn't last forever. James Naji didn't create this problem. He exposed it. And unless something changes, the next case won't just shake college basketball. It could finally force the NBA into the conversation. And that kind of pressure is already playing out elsewhere. In the WNBA, players have voted to strike if necessary in pursuit of better pay. The risk is massive. A prolonged strike could derail the league entirely. But that's how serious this moment is. When systems refuse to evolve, the people inside them eventually force the issue. The only question left is, who blinks first?